Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something today. The longer a man has been without a relationship, the more, oh yeah, the more. See, at first glance, you might think it's a bad thing, like something is wrong with him. But let me break this down for you. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something real today. See, when a man has been alone for a long time, it does something to him. I ain't talking about loneliness where you're sitting around feeling sorry for yourself. We're talking about that deep kind of alone where life puts you on pause so you can start taking a hard look at yourself. And I know this because I've been there and I've seen brothers go through it. When a man spends that kind of time without a relationship, without somebody calling him every day, without somebody loving on him or checking on him, he starts to see things different. He starts to see himself different. See, when you're in a relationship all the time, it's easy to blame the other person. It's easy to say, she didn't understand me or she didn't support me. But when you're by yourself, man, the mirror gets clearer. Ain't nobody else to point the finger at. You start realizing maybe it wasn't always her. Maybe you had some flaws too. Maybe you got a temper you didn't want to admit. Maybe you got dreams you pushed aside because you got comfortable. Maybe you never even sat down to figure out what kind of man you want to be 5, 10 years from now. That time alone, it makes you face all that. And let me tell you, it ain't pretty at first. Oh, it ain't uncomfortable. Because the truth about yourself will shake you up. You start remembering times you messed up, times you let somebody down, times you should have acted like a man, but you chose the easy way out. But see, that's where the growth starts. That's where a man starts building his foundation. Ain't no relationship, no woman, no friend who can do that for him. That's his own fight. That's his own journey. And while he's sitting in that space, something else starts happening. He starts dreaming again. He starts thinking about what kind of legacy he want to leave behind. He starts asking himself, am I living up to my own potential? See, when you're always busy chasing relationships or trying to keep up with the world, you don't slow down long enough to hear your own dreams calling you. But when it's just you and that silence gets loud, man, you hear every dream you buried, every goal you said you'd start next year. And suddenly, you got no excuse not to go after it. But that ain't all. Time alone also shows a man what he really values. He starts seeing past the surface level stuff. See, when you young or when you ain't had time to think, you chase looks, you chase excitement, you chase what shines. But after spending seasons alone, you realize it ain't about who looks good on Instagram. It's about who's going to pray for you when you're down. It's about who's going to stand with you when the storm hits. That's the kind of clarity a man gets when he's been by himself for a while. He starts valuing loyalty over looks. He starts looking for peace instead of drama. He starts choosing substance over flash. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, time alone is a teacher. And it teaches hard lessons. But those lessons, they build a man up in ways no relationship ever could. That's why when he finally steps back into love, he's different. He's better because he knows exactly who he is now, and he ain't guessing no more. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that folks don't talk about enough. See, when a man's been single for a long time, people start whispering. They say, man, what's wrong with him? Why he got nobody yet? But what they don't understand is that the longer that man waits, the higher his standards rise. And I ain't talking about that shallow checklist stuff. I mean the real standards that make or break a life partner. Because when you've been out of the game for a while, you start seeing through all the nonsense. In the beginning, when you young or you just getting started, you fall for anything that look good, smile sweet, and say the right words. You ain't looking at the big picture. You looking at the moment. But the longer you sit back and watch life, the more you realize that good looks fade and sweet words mean nothing if they ain't backed by real action. That man starts paying attention to character now. He starts asking himself, can this woman handle life's ups and downs with me? Can she pray with me, build with me, and not just party with me? See, that's a whole different standard right there. And let me tell you, when a man's been alone for a while, he gets real serious about his peace. Oh yeah, peace becomes priceless to him. He done spent too many nights by himself, getting his mind right, cleaning up his own spirit, fixing his own flaws. So now he ain't about to let somebody come in and bring chaos into his life. No, sir. That man's standard goes up because he knows what it feels like to have peace. And he ain't willing to trade that just for somebody who looks good on his arm. He starts choosing peace over pretty. He starts choosing loyalty over luxury. That's how you know he's grown. And another thing happens too. He stops settling for potential. See, early on you meet somebody and you say, well, she could be this, she might become that. But after waiting and watching life for a while, that man starts saying to himself, I need someone who already is what I'm looking for, not someone I gotta fix or build up or wait on to change. His standard rises because he's learned that love ain't supposed to be a project. It's supposed to be a partnership. And he's done taking on projects. He wants someone who's ready, whole, and solid, just like he's been working to be. Now, that don't mean he gets arrogant. No, it means he gets wise. He ain't looking for perfect, but he sure ain't settling for toxic. He ain't expecting a fantasy, but he's demanding reality. Someone who can love, commit, and stand firm because he's waited too long, learned too much, and grown too far to go backwards now. And every year that passes, every lesson he learns while he's alone, it adds another layer to his standards. Not out of pride, but out of self-respect, out of knowing his worth, out of protecting the life and peace he's built in that waiting season. So if you see a man who's been single a while and he ain't jumping at every chance that comes his way, understand this. He's not picky, he's purposeful. He's not afraid of love, he just refuses to lower his standard for it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the kind of man who, when he finally chooses, he chooses right. Ladies and gentlemen, let me explain something that a lot of people overlook. When a man has been patient, when he's been waiting and holding out, that patience don't go to waste. No, sir. That patience is working on him in ways you can't see from the outside. See, patience is like weightlifting for the soul. Every time he waits, every time he resists jumping into something that don't fit him, every time he says no to what looks good but ain't good for him, he's building emotional muscle. He's getting stronger inside. He's maturing in ways that a man who always chasing after love can't even understand. Now, let me tell you, patience ain't easy. It stretches you. It challenges you. It makes you question yourself sometimes. It makes you wonder if you're missing out, if you're falling behind. But what it's really doing is teaching you how to control your impulses. See, any fool can jump into the first relationship that shows up, but it takes a grown man to wait for something real. It takes strength to say, no, this ain't right for me. I'm going to wait a little longer. And every time he does that, he gets a little wiser, a little tougher, a little more in control of his emotions. And that control, that maturity, it shows up in how he handles life. A man who's learned patience don't panic when things go wrong. He don't fall apart when the storm comes. Why? Because he's been through storms alone before. He sat in silence. He's fought through lonely nights. He's wrestled with doubt and came out on the other side. So now, when love finally shows up, he don't cling to it out of desperation. He don't smother it or ruin it with insecurity. He's calm, he's steady, because he knows he can survive without it, which means he can cherish it without fear. That patience also teaches a man how to listen, not just to other people, but to himself. When you spend time waiting, you start hearing that inner voice loud and clear. You start understanding what triggers you, what heals you, what drives you. And when you finally get into a relationship, you bring that self-awareness with you. You ain't blaming your partner for every little thing. You ain't overreacting when things get rough, because you know who you are now. You've matured emotionally. You put in the quiet work while the world was busy running in circles. And let me tell you, a patient man loves different. Oh, yeah. See, when you've waited, when you've built that emotional strength, you don't come into love empty-handed. You come in with stability. You come in ready to give, not just take. You ain't looking for somebody to fix you. You already fixed yourself. And that makes all the difference. Because now love becomes an addition to your life, not your whole life. You ain't using love to fill a hole, using love to build something solid. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, patience may look like standing still from the outside, but on the inside, it's building a fortress. It's making that man stronger, wiser, calmer, and more mature. And when his time comes, when the right one finally crosses his path, he's ready in ways that only patience could prepare him for. That's the power of waiting right there. Ladies and gentlemen, let me break something down for you today. See, the longer a man has been without a relationship, the clearer he starts to see what love really is. Not that fairy tale mess they sell you in movies. Not the Instagram highlight reel with filters and hashtags. No, I'm talking about the real kind of love, the kind that's built on commitment and sacrifice. And trust me, a man don't learn that lesson overnight. It comes through time, through sitting alone and watching life unfold around him. When a man is young or just jumping from one relationship to another, he gets caught up in the fantasy. He thinks love is about butterflies and late night texts and somebody laughing at all his jokes. But when he's been alone long enough, he starts realizing that ain't love. That's the thrill. That's the rush. And the rush don't last. What lasts is commitment. What lasts is two people choosing each other every day, even when the butterflies are gone, even when the jokes ain't funny no more, even when life gets heavy. And see, while he's waiting, while he's spending time without that relationship comfort, he starts learning that love costs something. It costs time. It costs energy. It costs sacrifice. Love ain't just about what you get. It's about what you're willing to give up to make it work. And that's a hard truth, but it's a beautiful one too. Because when a man finally gets that, when it finally clicks in his spirit, he stops looking for somebody to just complete him or make him feel good. He starts looking for somebody he can go to war with, somebody he can build with, somebody he's ready to sacrifice for. And that sacrifice, man, that's the part they don't tell you about. Love means giving up your ego sometimes. It means shutting your mouth when you really want to be right. It means stepping up when you're tired. Saying, I got you when life is beating your partner down. And a man who's been alone long enough, he starts realizing that love ain't about always feeling good. It's about doing good, even when you don't feel like it. It's about sticking it out when it's hard because you made a commitment and your word means something. That's maturity right there, ladies and gentlemen. That's the shift that happens in a man's heart when he's had time to reflect, to grow, to watch the world's version of love crumble and still choose to believe in something deeper. He stops chasing fantasy and he starts seeking foundation. He needs sparks every day, and he needs stability. He don't need drama, he needs peace. And he understands that to get that kind of love, he's got to bring commitment and sacrifice to the table first. So now when love finally comes knocking on his door, he ain't fooled by the surface. He ain't distracted by the flash. He looks for substance, for somebody who understands that real love is a daily choice, not a one-time feeling, because he's ready now, ready to give, ready to serve, ready to fight for something that's real. And that's the kind of love that don't fade, that don't break under pressure, because it's built on commitment and sacrifice. The things he learned when he had nobody but himself and the truth. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that life will teach a man if he's patient enough. The longer he waits, the more he values that relationship when it finally comes his way. See, time has a funny way of making a man appreciate things deeper. When you get something too easy, too quick, you don't always see its worth. You take it for granted. But when you've been waiting, when you've gone through seasons of being alone, when you've seen love pass you by and you stayed the course, that's when you truly understand how precious it is. When the real thing shows up, see, a man who's been waiting ain't coming into love with that careless attitude. And now he's coming in with both hands open, ready to hold on and not let go. Because he knows what it's like to sit in silence, to watch other folks find their person while he's still out here waiting on something real. That wait makes him grateful. And gratitude is powerful, ladies and gentlemen. It changes how you treat people. It changes how you protect what you got. A man who's waited long enough ain't about to let petty arguments tear apart what he knows is rare. He ain't about to throw away love over foolishness, because he's felt what life feels like without it. And that's the thing, when you've waited, you start seeing love not as a right, but as a privilege. You stop expecting somebody to show up and fix your loneliness, and you start preparing yourself to be worthy of the blessing when it comes. And when it does come, man, you cherish it You don't overlook the small things. You notice the way she supports you when you're down, the way she prays for you when you're weak, the way she stands with you even when times are hard. You see it all because your eyes have been trained by the weight. Your heart has been conditioned to recognize value because you spent enough time without it. A man who's weighted also don't move reckless with love. He don't play games. He don't leave things unsaid. He don't let pride build walls between him and his woman because he knows that real love is rare. And rare things deserve care. He becomes more patient, more forgiving, more intentional. He listens better. He communicates clearer. And he fights harder to keep that relationship healthy. Why? Because he remembers those nights he prayed for this. He remembers the birthdays he spent alone, the holidays where everybody else had somebody and he was still waiting. That memory makes him hold tight to what he's got now. And let me tell you, that man also loves deeper because the weight has softened his heart. It stripped away the ego, the arrogance, the selfishness. It's humbled him. So now, when he gives his love, he gives it fully. He don't hold back. He don't keep one foot out the door. He's all in. And that kind of love, that's the kind that changes lives. That's the kind that builds legacies because it comes from a place of appreciation, not desperation. It comes from knowing the difference between temporary pleasure and lifelong treasure. Mhm. The longer a man waits, the more he realizes that love ain't something you stumble into. It's something you nurture, protect, and honor. And so he becomes a protector of his relationship. He becomes a servant in it, willing to do the work, willing to make the sacrifices, willing to fight the battles that come with building something strong. He values it because he understands its weight, its cost, its beauty. And because he's waited, he don't waste it. He don't sabotage it. He shows up every day ready to invest in it because he knows the pain of emptiness and the joy of finally being filled. So, ladies and gentlemen, when you see a man who's been single a long time and then finally finds his person, watch how he moves. Watch how carefully he handles that love. Watch how seriously he takes his role. That's a man who's been shaped by the weight. And the longer the wait, the more precious that love becomes when it finally comes home. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something real plain today. A man who's been without love for a long time, he learns a lesson most folks overlook. He learns never to take love for granted again. See, when you've been sitting in silence, when you've walked through those lonely seasons where nobody's checking on you, nobody's asking how you really feel, that time alone does something deep to your spirit. It makes you understand that love is not some everyday thing you can treat casual. It's rare, it's valuable, and when it finally comes into your life, after you've been waiting and praying and hoping, you grab hold of it like your life depends on it, because in some ways, it does. Now, when a man's been without love, he sees things differently. He don't overlook the little things no more. That simple text saying, I miss you, that soft hand on his back when he's stressed, that warm meal waiting at home, he don't take none of that lightly because he remembers when he didn't have it. He remembers coming home to an empty house. sitting in silence with nobody to share his day with. So when love shows up, even in the smallest ways, he sees it clear. It shines bright to him. Because his heart has been in the dark long enough to recognize the light. And let me tell you something else. A man who's been without love knows better than to play games with it. He ain't out here trying to impress folks or juggle options. Nah, he's serious now. Whew. He ain't about to gamble with something he knows is rare. That long stretch without love has taught him that you don't get too many chances at something real. So when he finally finds it, he protects it. He nurtures it. He waters that relationship like a man who's been thirsty for years, because that wait built a hunger in him. And now that he's tasted real love, he refuses to starve again. See, before the wait, he might have been careless. He might have had love before, didn't even see it for what it was. Took it for granted, thought it would always be there. But after you've been without it, after you've had time to feel that emptiness, you start realizing how fragile love really is, how easily it can slip through your fingers if you ain't careful. And that knowledge, that makes a man show up different. He shows up present. He shows up grateful. He don't leave his partner wondering if they appreciate it. He makes sure they know every single day. And that gratitude, ladies and gentlemen, it changes how he loves. He becomes more patient, more forgiving, because he understands that love ain't perfect, but it's worth fighting for. When you've had nothing for long enough, you don't throw away something good just because it got a little tough. You lean in, you work harder. And the three, you love deeper, because you know the alternative. You know what it feels like to go to bed alone night after night, to celebrate wins with nobody by your side, to face losses with nobody to catch your fall. That memory keeps you humble, it keeps you loyal, it keeps you grounded. And let me say this, a man who's waited long for love also learns to celebrate it in ways he never did before. He don't wait for anniversaries or birthdays to show his appreciation. Every day becomes a reason to say thank you, to say, I'm blessed to have you, to do something special just because. Because in his heart, he knows he's living the answer to prayers he whispered when nobody else was around. And that kind of love, that's the kind that lasts. That's the kind that don't fade when times get rough, because it's built on real gratitude, not just on feelings that come and go. So yeah, when love finally comes to a man who's been without it for a long time, he don't ever let himself forget the drought he came from. He don't ever let his heart get cold or careless again. He loves like a man who knows the cost of being without, and that makes his love stronger, deeper, and more powerful than it's ever been, because he's learned the hard way. Love is a gift, and when you get it, you hold on tight, and you never, ever take it for granted again.